Each of us has a light that's been put in us, not meant to shine our light, but to share our light. Welcome to Share Your Light, where we have candid conversations with individuals who have overcome tremendous hardship and adversity in their journey through life. Today, we have three-time Olympic gold medalist Tianna Bartoletta here to share her journey through adversity, depression, and nearly giving up not only on her Olympic dreams, but on life. Welcome, Ms. Tianna Bartoletta.
Thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all.
Girl, I was reading your blog until like 1 in the morning last night.
In one sitting?
Well, I've read it before. I've read different posts, but I just wanted to go back through and like look at some, and I just started clicking. I was like, let me see this one. And I think I'm in a different place from the last time when I started reading it, because I think the first time I read several of your posts was when you first released the ebook. I was a high school coach at that time.
Okay.
And so just a little bit about me. 13 months ago, I lost my son, my 17-year-old son. And so I'm just in a completely different place. And when I was reading, especially your posts that talk about depression, and I'm getting emotional and we just getting started, but reading your posts about depression, and I was like, it resonates so much with what I've been going through with grief, and I just was floored because I didn't expect it. Here I am trying to do this, interview to help inspire, athletes who are going through something. And it's actually, in a sense, helping me understand, more about myself and my process as well. So I definitely appreciate you being so transparent and raw with your writing. Are you planning to turn it into a book?
So I've been working on this memoir for what seems like forever. And because I keep changing the story doesn't change, but how I want to present it kind of changes. So I'm 65,000 words in to this memoir. It's like a work in progress. So yes, I'm doing it, but the blog entries, I think last year I started to insert blog entries between chapters to kind of just change the pace of the story. And because like you said, you can tell from following my blog where I am, like what space I'm in. And I think it's kind of cool to go back. It's almost like a diary to go back and read the progression. So I'm finding ways to insert actual blog posts into the memoir while continuing to write the story. But it is such a process. And I find that when I get to a part of the story, I'm really not trying to relive. I struggle to write it, struggle to throw myself back into that space because it's so easy. I mean, you can see a picture of something and get completely transported back to that time, smell, feel, hear all the things you were in that moment. And I'm just like, I'm doing so good. I don't know if I want to go back to that, but it's necessary for reasons like you said, because other people are going through so much stuff. And I really want people to understand that, like, I'm not some superhuman, like, we're all touched by God, I would say, but like, I don't have anything spectacular about me that allows me to like get out there and be a high performer. I'm a very real person going through very real shit and has figured out like how to keep putting one foot in front of the other. So I think that's what's important and why I keep trying to push through, but it's like, you get emotional reading the blogs and stuff. I'm emotional when I write them. I'm emotional when I reread them. It's just a mess.
Yeah. I relate to what you're saying about like the emotion coming up when you're writing, because I try to, share my process too. And it's very emotional. Sometimes I'm just like, I can't do it. And then sometimes, I try to be positive, and it's like, sometimes I just can't. I can't be positive.
Yeah. And that's a message I wanna share with your team too. Like, don't rush to try to find the silver lining, because I know that like parents who mean well are going to be like, well, like, look at the positive, and like maybe right now you can't find a positive, and that's okay. Like, don't go beating yourself up because you haven't been able to flip this situation for the better. It's not a good situation. Feel what you need to feel for however long it's there, and then let it go when you're ready to let it go. Sometimes trying to rush to see the positives is dishonest. It's fake. And you are just trying to put on this like super motivational. And we all got Instagram, right? So we see people who are doing this, like this rush to trying to be inspirational or finding some kind of positivity when it's just not there for you. So don't even, if you have to end a blog on like a period that's not a high note, so be it. That's real life. I understand that completely.
Yeah. Do you find that, during the quarantine, it's been kind of difficult with like pre-existing trauma or, depression or anxiety coming back up to the surface because the things that we used to distract us are no longer there?
Yes, I love this question because I was just talking to my high performance coach, which some people could call a life coach or whatever. And I was telling him, I was like, we're all learning that there is a difference between busyness and like productivity, because like a lot of the stuff I was doing was just keeping me busy. So now that's come to a halt. And now I'm being productive, but in that space where there's no busyness, things do come up. I cried all Easter Sunday about something stupid, but it was something that clearly needed to be addressed and come up and work its way out. But if I wasn't sitting here in the quiet and the stillness, I wouldn't have been able to get through that. The problem is that there are a lot of people who never work through those tools or have the resources to work that through. And so things are coming up and maybe they're feeling overwhelmed or swallowed whole by those things because they were so busy distracting themselves that they never sat down and addressed the work. And I think that's where I was coming from when I just made a post the other day. The caption was, some people cannot stand the silence because their demons are too loud. And that's what I meant. Is like, there are some people who can't meditate because the things that come up for them in meditation is too much and they don't know what to do or how to sit with that. And so this is a very important time to learn how to be still with yourself, but you can't judge the things that come up. That's where we get in trouble, trying to label things as good or bad or, uplifting or depressing. You just have to kind of get used to being like, oh, that person is a problem for me. Watch it pass and then deal with it as you're able to deal with it. Stuff like that. And that's going to keep happening.
With meditating, I think it's something that people, like you said, are uncomfortable doing or just don't realize how beneficial it can be. But obviously, there are things that you use as tools, because even through going through depression and suicidal thoughts, you still were very productive even through these times of turmoil in your life. If you could talk to someone who might be having depressive thoughts right now or even suicidal thoughts, about where you were in that point, how were you still able to be productive? Because some people let those kind of things paralyze them and freeze them. How are you able to still move through that?
So what meditation teaches you, if you can get disciplined enough to just sit there, it teaches you that you are not your thoughts and that you are not your feelings. Because if you can observe that thing, that means you're not that. I mean, that's like the most simple way I can explain it. Like, if you can see the thought happening, you're not that thought. If you can see your anger, you are not your anger. If you can see your depression, you are not your depression. And so that allowed me to understand that my depression, which still comes whenever it wants to show up, is basically a guest in my house that I have to tend to and cater to for a short period of time. And then she will move on. And she's a she. I don't know why she's a she, but that feels true to me. She moves on. And so once I realized that, like, I am not depressed, I am having an experience with depression. Those are two very different things. I am able to still operate normally or as close to normal. Like if I were to say I'm depressed, it's harder for me to go to practice because I'm depressed. If I say and believe I am experiencing depression right now, I can go to practice with my depression. Practice might not be awesome, but I am not oppressed by it. It's just with me. Like I take it with me. And sometimes that requires me to say something to somebody, to whoever I'm working with that day. Like, look, I am in a state. I got out here. I put my shoes on, one thing at a time. But this is what I'm dealing with today. Let's see what we can do. And let that be that.
Now that's really important what you just said, having that relationship with, your coach or whoever you're working with to be able to speak up and say that. Have you always had that kind of relationship with all your coaches, or has that been a process as well?
No, that's been a process, and it's a little easier for me because I choose who I work with. It's different for high school athletes and sometimes collegiate athletes who don't necessarily get a say in the personnel that they're around. So in that case, I typically say it doesn't really matter what your relationship with them is like. What's your relationship with you like? Like how willing are you how far are you gonna go to have your own back in moments like that? So I don't have to like my coach. We don't have to be best friends for me to be like, this is what's happening today. Like this is what's going on. And I'm doing it for me, not just to make the coach's life easier, but like I'm having my own back by being honest and communicating something. Like help me, I'm helping you help me by speaking up. And so having a good relationship is a bonus, but it's not a prerequisite to how you treat yourself and how you care for yourself. Basically what I want to say, because I've heard way too many stories about I don't like my coach don't like me. And in high school, who knows what the truth is, probably somewhere in the middle, because I remember being an adolescent in high school, emotional and volatile about everything. Like you can look at me one way and I think you hate me. So it really has more to do with how in tune with yourself are you and how willing are you to have your own back to start to set yourself up for success. And that could be different day to day.
And how much they understand and love themselves too. Like some people, some of the athletes I'm talking to, and it's high school and collegiate, they just don't understand what they're going through, and they don't even understand that anxiety is a real thing. They don't understand. I think in our sport too, or in sports in general, there's not enough attention given to sports anxiety. People who have performance-related anxiety, people who've been high performers in the past, they go through something traumatic in their life, and then now all of a sudden they're not performing, and then there's no one walking them through, helping them through the steps to understand what they're really going through. I had a person I was talking to recently, and they started having suicidal thoughts, but didn't have the courage to speak up and tell anybody what they were going through. So I think this right here, this platform, what you're doing, and I've read a few different athletes like, Michael Phelps, and I think there was an article that English Gardner did a while back that I've shared with athletes. But other than that, there's not very many people speaking up about what they're going through. And so then it doesn't give the athletes who are coming behind you guys the permission to understand what they're experiencing.
Right. Because there's this idea that as athletes, we got to be strong, we got to be tough. And then from the athlete's perspective, we kind of know that on one level, nobody actually cares about what we're actually going through. They care about the performance. And that's where a lot of the anxiety comes from. It's like, does my sponsor actually care that my divorce was really, really hard on me? Do they really care? They want to know if I can medal, basically, And so internalizing those feelings like, oh, they only care about the results is where a lot of that anxiety comes from. But me, I'm just going to blow all that up, because it's like when you see me on the track, I need you to understand what I'm overcoming or what I'm facing to get there. It removed the anxiety for me to just talk about it, because now I'm in a situation where it's like, you already know what it is. So if I can pull it off, we can celebrate together. And if I don't pull it off, you can give me a hug. But at least we all know I'm coming from a place of authenticity. I told you I was, like I'm showing you myself, and yet you see me going to practice every day, and like maybe it's enough and maybe it's not, but I no longer have to worry about how it's going to be perceived. I don't have to think about that. And it is because I had to be brave enough to just tell the truth. And that's the thing. It's scary and uncomfortable, even for me, even now. It's like, why do I need the world to know this? I would rather not. I'm actually quite private. And so I do it because for reasons like this. You probably have a whole team of people struggling in different ways, don't even know how to articulate what it is that they're feeling. And if they can articulate it, feel like, well, that's just my coach. She just wants me to stay fit in case there's a season to be had. She's probably not trying to hear any of this stuff. Or there's some athletes that have coaches who feel like it's just an excuse, or like, stop making excuses. And it's really not. But you have to just be brave enough, be brave enough to dive into the pool that is all about just being 100% yourself and being truthful about it.
So on the flip side, what's the danger of holding it in? Like, have you been to a point to where you held everything in and tried to just ignore it?
Oh yeah, the entire time that I was married, I was holding in like the truth about who I was, like holding that in from not just my now ex-husband, but like the entire world had no idea who I really was, because I was just trying to live the way I needed to survive the situation. The dangers of that, it was killing me on the inside to not be myself. Every time I didn't speak up for myself or my own reality, it killed me a little. It like damaged my self-esteem. Like when you keep compromising yourself in that way, it spills over into a lot of areas. There was a lot of doubt, a lot of anxiety. My depression was worse. And it made me suicidal. So it wasn't even that I was keeping suicidal thoughts to myself. Me keeping all that stuff to myself made me suicidal because it became too much. I felt like it was too much for me to carry on my own. It was overwhelming.
Those exact words, that's what I woke up with yesterday on my heart, was like, this is too heavy today. It's too heavy for me to carry. And I typed it in and then I deleted it because I was like, like you said, sometimes you just don't feel like sharing and I think that's why I was so drawn to the article you wrote, How to Save a Life, because I feel like sometimes when I post how I'm really feeling, or I even speak up about how I'm really feeling, people are so focused on trying to make me not feel that way, that it makes me feel worse, that they're not just honoring where I am in the space that I'm in and giving me the permission, because sometimes I just need to say it. I don't need you to fix it because you can't fix it. You can't fix it unless you can bring my son back, and I don't think you can do that. So I think that people want us to hide. I was telling someone, I think there's something kind of like grief shaming and anxiety shaming. They make us feel ashamed for how we feel. I was talking to one of my athletes the other day, and she just started crying about everything she's been going through. Her lack of identity right now. She doesn't know who she is now without track, and she was crying. And then she said, I'm okay. And I said, don't do that. Because she tried to fix it. She snapped real quick and fixed it, stop crying, everything. And I said, don't do that. Society makes us feel like we have to, like, all of a sudden turn it off and be okay. But that's not the reality. To say we're okay doesn't mean we're really okay. You just, like, feeling the shame that you were actually transparent with how you felt in that moment.
Right. I say to people who do that, and I'm one of those people who will zip it back up. But I will say to people, like, I see you. You don't have to do that with me. Like, it's okay. Because there are people you do have to do that with. I'm going to be for real. Everybody can't handle everything. So there are people that you need to pull it together for, but when you find a person that you don't have to do that with, like you were for her, like, do that, go there, because you need to get it out. But yeah, it's very dismissive of feelings to be the person that's like, God won't give you more than you can handle. And I remember that conversation with my mom. I remember I hadn't slept for going on 90 days of no sleep. The anxiety and the depression it was a lot. I called my mom and I told her, I was like, what is going on? I can't handle this anymore. And she was like, God's testing your faith. And I was like, this feels like Job to me. This feels like God gave, like the devil permission to just destroy me. And like, they're just sitting back and watching it happen. And then she said, well, God won't give you any more than you can handle. And I was like, are you sure? And like, the tone of my voice scared her because she heard me dying like on that call. And I think that for me was a moment when I was like, there are some things that you really truly feel you can't handle. And I needed my mom in that moment to say, what is it? Like, how can I help you? Like, she couldn't have helped me, but the offer and the pause to just listen to what it was would have probably given me some hope that I didn't previously have. And so, yeah, you got to find those people, find your people, find the person that you can do that with, and know that you can't do it with everybody. And you shouldn't do it with everybody because it can end up, like you said, you felt worse after. So it can end up harming you more to do that with the wrong people. But it is really important. Like, don't always zip it up because you will explode at some point.
Yes, yes, yes. So when you all were in the 4x1 and you all had to run all by yourselves, what do you think, like some of your experiences in life prepared you to like be able to operate in that kind of space? Like, what are your thoughts?
I call all of the issues I've ever had, I call it hate fire. And that hate fire is like my jet fuel when I go to competitions. So like when in situations like that, I'm drawing on all of those things. It's like, I'm looking at my competitors like, you have no idea what I've been through to get here right now. And I'm about to unleash it all on all of you. And so in a moment like that, when you're doing a solo run, at the Olympics, you're just like, I remember I was of two minds. I was like, how am I supposed to know I'm running fast when there's like nobody out here? Like, we're running for time. They don't even have like a clock on the Jumbotron for us to see or keep track of. It's like, I don't know, which means I'm just going to have to go. Like, I'm just going to have to push myself in a way that I've never really needed to, because there's always people on the outside. There's always a stagger for me to go bust down, right? And so this was the hardest race because this was the one where I needed to really take a minute and like just get that groundswell of like fuel up. And all of that fuel was everything that I have ever gone through up until that point. And I brought all of that. And like when the gun went off, that was me like releasing all of that, like just running for my life, slaying demons, chasing it down, running for the life that I wanted, all of those things. That was a very emotional run for me because I was working some stuff out on that turn. And I think that's what you all see every time I run a relay. That's I'm in the last rounds of the long jump final. That is what's happening. That's what I'm like conjuring up, almost like bringing up to the surface so that I can use it as fuel.
When you went through the phase of not performing as well as you did towards the end, or as you are now, do you think that the emotion that you like, was it just because you didn't know how to deal with the trauma you've experienced, or what was it in that gap between like 2006 and 2012?
Yeah, so in hindsight, I understand that was absolutely necessary to prepare me for success later. My issue was that I had zero identity outside of being a track athlete. And so when it wasn't going well, I didn't know who I was. I didn't think I was a good person because like, I can't jump, I can't run. Like it was disastrous. And it was so bad that it forced me to kind of try to figure out who I was, like what I like to do. And to do that, it started with silly stuff like, here's a list of 10 things I enjoy. These are my, like, I did not know who I was. I was eat, sleep, train, repeat. And so I had to start doing things like, my favorite foods are these. And I had to do it again after I got divorced, because I had lost my identity. I basically was him. And so after I left, I was like, oh, what do I really like to eat for breakfast? And it was like really painfully obvious stuff, but I didn't know it. I didn't know. And so during the 6 years, I had to get reconnected with who Tianna was, or at least who I wanted to be. Like, if I didn't know who I was, I could at least identify what it was that I was working for, and then start creating a plan to get there. That gave me something actionable to do, since as athletes, we like to do stuff. We like to have goals to accomplish. And so that helped me. And so you can't quit. And so since you can't quit, you have to figure out ways to keep yourself motivated or keep yourself showing up. And it took me 6 years to figure that out.
I think what you said about finding their identity is so key. And like right now with the quarantine, that's what everybody's going through, because whether you're the best athlete in track or one of the worst, everybody is without it right now. So it's like that sense of identity that they've always had is not there right now. Like one of the athletes that I'm talking to, her relationship with her parents has always revolved around her performances in track. Mm-hmm. And so now she's not feeling the sense of love from performing well. So now she's not feeling love at all. And there's no love inside. And I'm talking to her about, you have to know who you are and love yourself first. Otherwise, none of the other stuff really matters.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. It's like, it's even true for non-athletes, right? How about the guy who was, bragged about having a corner office? Like, you're working from home on the couch. So who are you now? So like, all of us are going through this same very real thing. The thing is, like, if we do this work now, we won't have to do it again. And we'll be healthier, at least mentally, on the other side of this, because we're being forced to have this time to deal with it. I think a lot of people are learning that about their relationships right now, that their relationships are involved around doing stuff and not necessarily the interpersonal relationship between the people.
Yeah. And sometimes that's a dangerous thing too. If a relationship between parents and athletes is only revolved around sport, then what happens when that kid, breaks their leg and sport is no longer a part of their life? Because this could have happened even without the quarantine. Yeah. So it's just a wake-up call to people to develop real relationships. And then also, we can't control our parents. We can't control who they are in those relationships, but it goes back to that self-identity and understand who we are and what our purpose is.
I've been through a lot of stuff, and I do not believe that it was for nothing. And so if I am not of service, then I am allowing all of those things that I have barely survived up until this point be meaningless. If I just sit on it and I'm just here in my bubble, then I have nearly killed myself to wake up, to get to this point where I'm waking up this morning having this conversation with you for no reason at all. And I refused to have gone through all of that pain, that hurt, all of that for no reason, because that was not cool. It was not fun. I didn't deserve it. It has to mean something.
Yeah. That's definitely hitting home. I'm trying to find my way through that and say, I have to have, this pain is here, so I have to do something with it. I have to use it to help somebody else that could be going through what I'm going through. And I get so emotional. I see like the stories. You're in California, right? Mm-hmm. I've been seeing so many stories of kids that are committing suicide now during this time. I've seen some in the news, but a friend of mine called me 2 days ago and told me about a 17-year-old who killed himself in California. So that's probably about 6 or 7 I've heard of since this quarantine started. Yeah. And that isolation and the things like the busyness and the distraction. People are saying like sports isn't that important. I know it's not the most important thing right now because people's lives are in jeopardy, but we have to understand what it means to people who are trapped in a house and not having the ability to speak up and say what they're going through and having help to get through those things, or having a sense of purpose and understanding what they're here for, what they're supposed to do outside of athletics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's much easier said than done. But what we do is not who we are. And we really need to understand that and embody that. Like, you run track, you are not that. You do that, but you are not that. And when you don't have it, you are someone else entirely. You are separate from that. And if you can figure out how to be whole away from that, when you return to it, you're bringing your whole self to that endeavor. You will be a better version of that. You will do a better job because everything isn't riding on that performance. That I have not had a single performance where I went into it like, I really need to win this race because X, Y, and Z, and I've won the race. That doesn't happen. It doesn't work like that. My victories have come from when I've basically looked myself in the mirror. I've said, you've done everything you trained, you've prepared in every way possible. You've worked hard. Just give it your best. There's nothing else we can do at this point. And then I go. And then I get the medals. But I've never gotten a medal being like, okay, I got to go get this medal. Never. And that's because I understand that I am not that. I'm not the results. I am every day. I'm every day grinding. That's me. Me waking up and getting to the track and finding the motivation to do 1,000 sit-ups or whatever it is, or to not eat that sugar thing because I'm trying to keep it together. That's who I am. That discipline, that character, that integrity is who you are. The competition, the track meet, is literally just one single opportunity for you to showcase all that you are. That's it. And maybe it ends with a medal, a ribbon, a podium. Maybe it doesn't. But that result doesn't change a damn thing about all you did in the lead up to get there. It is what it is. And you got to get to that point. It took me a long time. So it's not something I expect people to have a light bulb moment and just be like, she's right. That's how I'm going in. It takes a long time. It takes you taking those major L's and knowing that the world doesn't end a few times to understand that you're okay. It's okay.